everyone, welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and I have a February Scrawlrbox here that we are going to unbox today. I'm going to try and get back into the format that I used to do, whereby we alternate between Scrawlrbox and Upcrate and doing the art challenge actually in with the unboxing. So for that purpose today we are just going to be unboxing, and the Scrawler challenge will be a separate video in 2 or 3 videos time, so probably next week sometime. So let's cheer ourselves up a little bit. Now, this is the monthly art subscription box from the UK. Mine has taken a bit of a battering, and you can, like, that's solid, so I don't know whether something just didn't fit very well in there or everything's like all bunched up at one end. So let's open it up and find out. Oh, fizzy rolls, sweeties, strawberry and tutti frutti flavour. That sounds delightful. So this is our Scrawler zine. This gives us information on our supplies and some arty inspiration and information, and we'll look at that last because we don't want to spoil the surprise. We have our featured artist. Oh, this is pretty. Look, it's fish. We've been drawing fish too. Oh, and more to the point, there's clownfish and a blue tang. These patterns are lovely. Right, let's find out here. Katie Smith. She's a professional artist from Scotland. Yay! Katie, why are you not... You're in Zurich. Yes, well, okay, that makes sense because it's much more fun in Switzerland than it is here. Our care formal education began at school on the Isle of Bute. Oh my goodness, the Isle of Bute is literally spitting distance from where I was born and brought up, so that's super, super, super nice. Her social media links are down the bottom here. She does have a website which is absolutely fabulous, and you can go and check that out. Oh, yay, that's really nice. Being Scottish, you don't often see a lot of things like that, especially from somewhere like Bute, which is, you know, it's a tiny island. Bute's the island and Rothsay is the only town on the island, and it's the kind of place you go for the day and you know, like go and get ice cream and stuff and then get the ferry back. It's best fun in the summer. Right, anyway, I digress. We have a Fontaine Gold Line Aqua pad. So this is watercolour paper, 300 GSM, which is industry standard for good quality watercolour paper. It is Fontaine paper, so I've got full confidence in it. Their paper is very, very good quality. 100% cellulose as well. 10 sheets. Oh, we've got another little quality control sticker. Good to know the quality controls there. Off-white paper. I really hate the texture of these kinds of papers. It's this sort of factory processed, like factory rolled, but the texture of it's almost like a weird crisscross. There's a name for that kind of pattern. I just can't think of it right now. But yeah, okay. Maybe not my favourite type of watercolour paper, but it certainly should do the job, but we shall put it to the test. We've got our sticker that fits in with the artwork. So this is a shrunken down version. I like to play the jigsaw game and try and fit it in, but this is just a squished down version. The sticker's really nice. We have, it's a Derwent palette. These are always great fun. I've got quite a few of these now, and I'm really hoping it's not one I've got already. Oh, it's the pastel one. Okay, yeah, I don't have this. Weirdly, I was going to buy this at one point and never did. And now we have Pastel Shades Paint Pan set. And these little palettes are great. I don't travel very often, but when I do, I like to take one of these Derwent palettes with me. You usually get a good range of colour. The water brushes are quite nice as well. So this joins together and you fill it with water, and you've also got a little sponge to clean it off. Not sure about the colours in this, because the ones that I've had of these before have been either based on the Inktense pencils or the Graphitint pencils. So I'm not sure what the actual paint is going to look like, but I am super excited to try that out. Huh! And we also have a Jelly Roll 08. These are very, very common white gel pens, great for outlining, highlights, blah, 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 blah. Super nice nib on them. And 08 is quite a big nib. I have lots of these. I will put this one into the stash shop because I've already got one that'll be used. This can go in as a new item into the stash shop. Okay, so let's see what it says about the items here. Derwent Pastel Shades Paint Pan set. Gouache style pigmented paints. Now that's interesting. So we're not thinking about watercolour here. If it's gouache style, I would imagine that it's like pigment paint. Uniquely soft, lightly formulated pastel shades. These gentle colours are perfect for romantic washes. Oh, I do like a good romantic wash. And dreamy blends, but they can also be layered for a brighter finish without dissolving any previously dried layers. Yeah, so I think this is pigment-based paint. So what that means is, with watercolour, if you put down a layer of watercolour and then let it dry, if you then put another layer on top, you can disturb the layer underneath and you can actually manipulate it and shift it about. With the pigment-based paints, so things like Inktense and obviously these pastel shades, once that first layer is dry, it's not going anywhere, so that has advantages. One is not better over the other, they just do different things and have different properties, so that's something that's really important to know, so that when we are working with it, we know what to expect, how the paint's actually going to behave. Okay, this means you can build up thick opaque layers to create a more dramatic, bright and matte finish. The possibilities with this palette are endless. This compact set contains 12 pastel paint pans, a mini water brush, 5 mixing palettes and a sponge to clean your supplies. A recommended retail price $29.99. I have never ever, in my 4 years of arting, I have never paid £30 for one of these palettes. Just, no. Okay. Aqua Pad. This is a brand new addition to the Fontaine line. Medium fine grain watercolour paper, perfect for oil, water-based medium and exploration. Acid-free paper with a sturdy quality and a natural off-white colour that is obtained without the use of optical brightener. Optical brightener, that's interesting. The grain on this paper is stronger on one side to ensure maximum absorption and smooth on the back, so it is intended for one-sided use. Okay, that's quite interesting. I always think the recommended retail price on the watercolour paper is a good indicator of how good the paper is. And I've said this many, many times, when it comes to watercolour paper, invest your money in your paper, not your paintbrushes, not your paints. If you are on a budget, a tight budget, buy the best watercolour paper that you can afford, because that's going to affect your painting more than your paintbrush and more than your paints. This is recommended retail price is £3.49 for watercolour paper. That's really cheap. This is obviously heading more towards the budget line, which the gold line range usually is, so that kind of makes sense. Not to say that this is going to be terrible paper, but this is definitely the cheaper end of the scale. So again, it's one of those things that's good to know. Okay, let's take a quick look at our Scrawler zine before we test out the supplies. And oh, it looks so pretty like this. So here's the kind of overview page, which is basically what I've just done. And here is our featured artist. Okay, I have a natural bias towards this artist because she's literally from a place that is not far from myself. But her artwork's beautiful. I mean, look at this. This is lovely. Yay for Katie. Scrawler tips. If you're unfamiliar with a medium that comes in one of these subscription boxes, the Scrawler tips are great because it kind of helps you figure out what you want to do. So let's have a quick look at this. Things to try. When setting up, we recommend using 2 pots of water. Right, I would say that is absolutely standard for any water-based medium. If you're using a water brush though, this doesn't apply, so that's a bit weird. You can still dip your water brush in a water pot, but kind of defeats the purpose of having a water brush. So, okay, the pastel paints are soft and light. Patience is key. If you plan on working in layers, make sure the underneath layer is absolutely dry. Okay, they're saying things to try out while the paint's still wet. While it's still wet, it'll behave a bit more like watercolour. You'll be able to move it about and soak it up, like I do lifting techniques with them. The white jelly roll is super opaque, making it ideal for layering over the paints. You can also paint on top of the ink for a brighter pop of pastel colour. That would be quite interesting to try, because that's something that I've not done, is to put some jelly roll down somewhere and then paint over the top of it, especially with the pastel colours. I think that would probably be quite nice. The artist's advice: if you're working with a good watercolour brand, you should be able to remove watercolour from your paper even after it's dried. By adding a little water and lifting some colour out, you can achieve great levels of fade, light bursts and delicate layers. Okay, so right, this is kind of now contradictory to what this said on the card, because they're talking about watercolours here, and we've established that these are not typical watercolours. I have no doubt we'll be able to lift some of this once it's dried, but it will be very difficult. This is very wishy-washy, I don't like it. Okay, they're talking here about using household objects as well to get texture. Most people have heard of the salt technique, where you sprinkle salt into your paint while it's still wet. They're talking about cling film, kitchen sponges. That might be a fun video just to do separately, is just a video on putting texture into watercolour. If you'd like to see that as a video, let me know in the comments down below. That would be handy dandy. Oh, here's the December Scrawler. Do you know, I never did the Scrawler challenge on this. It's something that I just never quite got round to. This makes me so happy because I love working on black paper. This one is absolutely my favourite, like 100%. Look at this little dude's face. Annie Hellberg, I love you. It's amazing. Now what's interesting as well, I've just spied this one up here. I'll zoom in a little bit on this one. I'm actually doing a very similar painting to this on a piece of MDF that I've painted with black gesso, and it's actually Pip, my dog, my youngest collie, and it's basically white acrylic paint on a black background. So it's really nice to see this as well, simply because it's a technique that I enjoy using myself, and it's very impactful, so I really like this one as well. Thank you, About a Bob, that's made me very happy. Okay, let's move on and see what else is in here. Okay, so the discussion here in the Scrawler Extra is about Pastel, and talk about origins, you know, get your art history knowledge up. And there's a little bit of chat here about the featured artist's artwork, so there is a message in it. What a lovely little scrawler zine. Okay, the last thing before we test out the products is to find out what the Scrawler Challenge is. I've got a funny feeling it might be an aquatic theme. What do you reckon? Let's see. Between the reef... Oh, yeah. Okay. Scrawlers, grab your snorkels. We're taking a peek. And they can't spell... Why can no one spell peek? Peek to look is P-E-E-K. Peek. Again, that totally cheeses me off, but I'm a bit of a stickler for stuff like that. We're taking a peek under the sea with this month's Scrawlrbox. Inspired by our featured artist, we have included a delicate colour palette to capture the plentiful variety of the tails and scales you might see flittering, oh that's a good word, about the coral reef. These pastel shades get brighter as you layer them, so play with creating pops of colour in your underwater creations. This kind of reminds me of another challenge that we've done, and I ended up drawing like an underwater coral thing, pearls, oyster, can't really remember, so okay. The fact that I have recently drawn a blue tang and also some little clownfish as well is quite interesting. Let's test them out. Alright, weirdly I actually have one of the Derwent water brushes close by that's got water in it, so that's so strange. Zoom in a little bit here and just show you what's what. So if I take the plastic off this, these do look really pretty. So this is what the water brush looks like in its compact form and like its travel form, so it's in two pieces, and this has got a stopper in it, so if you're going away somewhere you can fill this up with water and you can stick the stopper in it for travelling, so if you're going out for the day or whatever, and then you tuck it in there, close that down, off you go, and then when you're out at the other end you literally just pull that stopper out, making sure that you don't spill all the water out it, and this top part just screws on. So you screw it together and then that's you're ready to go. So that's the situation we're at here with this one. I was using it for some graphy tinting a couple of days ago, and it's just been sitting there minding its own beeswax. So we'll just use that, that's absolutely fine. Okay, and then that fits quite nicely in there as well, as you can see. So we've got the little swatch chart here, which is all very nice. I tend to find the colours don't necessarily come out exactly the same, but that's where the fun is. So let's get going and try it out on this paper. Obviously our jelly roll is not going to show up all that well on this paper, so we'll do it over the top of maybe some of these darker colours down here, and we should be able to see it in action. Oh boy. So silver blue. So they seem to be quite soluble. I've not done a lot there with my brush. Oh, it's quite wishy-washy. Okay, I see when they said delicate, they weren't kidding, were they? Jeez. I'm not really sure how I feel about the texture of this paper, do you know that? So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to go back over a couple of these with some extra layers, but I just want to swatch them out and see what the colours are like for now. Oh, okay, that's a lot more brown than I thought it was going to be. That's weird. This is supposed to be storm grey. This looks like sepia to me, or even like a French grey at a push. It's kind of behaving weird as well. It doesn't feel like gouache. What did they say here? Gouache style pigmented paints. No, I don't think so. It doesn't really feel like watercolour either, though. It's weird. Like I can't place these at all. These. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. That was silly. Oh, I love that colour. Artichoke, you are my friend. I like you. Yeah, you can see the texture of this paper. I really don't like this texture. That's a really good seaweed colour though. Okay, let's see other fun stuff. Mint. Oh yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's way more fun. Way more fun. So straight away, this colour is much easier to work with. It's behaving much better, and you can see just by the way the gradients played out. That's interesting in itself, that these more muted colours are a little bit more reluctant. And I can see building this up, you know, you could get some really bold colour with that. So, oh yeah. This turquoise colour's nice as well. I'm enjoying the range of colours so far. They seem to be pretty good. The only thing that's not really... The silver blue's not excited me for anything, and the storm grey really isn't grey at all, it's brown. But apart from that, so far so good. Cornflower blue. Oh, that's nice. I like that. The other nice thing about this, I don't know if they do it for the pastel set yet, but for the Graphitint and the Inktense pans, this is the lavender I'm using now, you can actually buy replacement pans for these, which is awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is... yeah. Okay, so far, not the biggest fan of the paper. Not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. And it doesn't seem to be any problems in taking the actual paint, which you would hope because it's meant to be watercolour paper. I'm just... the texture's most clear on this artichoke. I'll just try and zoom in and see if you can see. Oh, look. It shows up the texture of the paper really well. It's almost like a hatched situation. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's weird how it's only showing up with some and not others, but I was almost flooded with water, that one, so there you go. Not particularly relevant, but I just thought it was worth pointing out. Pink flamingo. I love the fact that these... oh no, we've missed out. I've missed out orchid pink. Right, I'll have to go back one. Leave a gap. These Derwent water brushes are usually fairly reliable in terms of water letdown. Don't have any problems with them. Right, okay, let's go back and try the orchid pink here. These are really pretty colours. So it's like the true pastel colours are obviously this first row, this top row here. I just worked backwards because I was really curious about these two down the bottom. There wasn't any real reason. This is supposed to be coral pink. This looks suspiciously like orange to me, but what do I know? Oh, that's quite a nice colour as well. Okay, these are rather delicate. Oh, this has got a bit of contamination. There's a tiny little bit of turquoise up here. Okay though. Again, I wouldn't have called that peach, but okay. And lemon. Yeah, okay. That's actually a really nice set of colours, and the fact that they've got a few practical, that makes it sound like pastel colours aren't practical. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. It's nice that they've got some balancing colours, there we go, that can be used to contrast with these, you know, very delicate pastel shades. We can put the storm grey is actually a perfect complement to these colours. I just wish they hadn't called it storm grey. So I'll pick one of these ones up the top that's dried out, it's a bit drier. Let's see what happens with the turquoise then. We go back over that. Oh, that's quite a strong colour. Now the other thing that I'm interested in, this conversation about when things are dry and when they're not dry. My artichoke is not dry. Okay, I want to build up a really strong block of colour here, and I'm going to use the cornflower blue. That makes me think of Fight Club instantly. That's really funny. Cornflower blue. I want to build up a couple of layers of this here, so I can try the jelly roll out on top of it. I'm just going to make sure there's lots of pigment there for that first one. Give ourselves a good base. So I'm going to let that dry. Now it'll be interesting to see as well what happens when we put colours down on top of other colours. So if I was to take my artichoke, for example, and put this down over here. Okay. It's not sitting very well on top of it. Oh no, there we go. So a wee bit of transparency there, like we can see through it, but we can also, I dare say if we layered that up a little bit more, we could get like some good opacity. I really want to see this pink flamingo in all its glory as well, like really, like that's pretty good. The rain is battering off the cave window, so it's a bit depressing outside. It's just the tail end of the storm stuff. Mostly unpleasant. It's unpleasant enough to not go outside unless you absolutely have to. So we can layer these up. I just want to see if I can disturb some of this, so I'm going to try it with this mint colour and see if... I mean, that is absolutely lifting off. Good grief. I hope you can see that. Can you see that white line that's starting to form there? Okay, that may just be because it's damp. I think the lifting properties may be more than first anticipated. Yeah, I mean, that's fairly liftable. I'm going to wait till it's absolutely bone dry and try it again, because I tend to find with that, the lifting properties, very much depends on how dry it is. I mean, there's touch dry and then there's like 24 hours dry or heat gun dry, you know, so there's differences. We'll take that into consideration though. But I do want to, the colours are still buildable though, and you can see as long as you're not like scrubbing away at them, you can still build up some really, really nice colour. This is really quite nice. I'm having much funsies here. Can I just sit here for the rest of the day and like paint pastel squares? That would be lovely. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of other things to do. Hoping to have the finishing touches on Mildred stickers today, for those of you that are waiting with anticipation. Look at that, that's a lovely colour. Lovely, lovely colour. And it's quite rich as well. One of my concerns with supplies that we get in I nearly said scroller boxes there because of scroller box, and all subscription boxes is, and it's happened loads of times before, I hate getting stuck in a sea of mid-tones. I like contrast. Contrast is good, and you can only use the white of the paper as contrast so far. Like, you have to be able to like dig down a bit, and this is an example of the kind of thing that we need, because it allows us to really bring out these delicate colours. You know, if you were to do like a nice wash, like a nice sunset wash with those three colours there, you could put a thin border like that all the way around that with the blue, and those colours would stand out really, really nicely. Or you could even mix it with a bit of your storm grey here. You know, you could layer those up together to make an even darker colour. Now, I actually really like this storm grey colour, I am not going to lie. Let's see what happens when we mix these while they're wet on the paper. Yeah, so we can mix colour on the paper. I dare say, if I was to keep back and forth in a little bit here, this is a really good test of the integrity of the paper as well, is scrubbing these layers together while it's wet. Yeah, so that's given us quite a dark shade as well. Let's keep going with this. A little bit more blue. Not really bothered what the colour turns out like. Just want to see if we can get something pretty dark, which it looks like we can. I could toss in another couple of colours, but because of the saturation and the fact that they're pastels, it's not going to have that much of an impact. But there you go. There's another thing that's really good about these. They mix well together. You can mix them on the paper as long as they're wet, and that's given us a really nice contrasting shade that offsets our pastels, especially the more delicate wash varieties of these. That's going to work really, really well together. I have been sitting here talking about these for 14 minutes. This is ridiculous. I'm obviously quite excited about this. Yeah, so I'm just going to leave this to dry. This is bone dry, and the colours have dried a lot lighter. So another piece of information that's really good to know, the colour that I mixed on the paper has stayed mixed. It's absolutely a-okay, and the paper has held up relatively well. There is a slight buckle, but it is nothing drastic at all. So really impressed with the paper, because I did a fair bit of scrubbing there and here as well, just putting down those layers, and it's absolutely perfect, no issues whatsoever. So I'm impressed with the quality of this paper. I just don't like the texture and I don't like the pattern. But for the price point, 10 sheets of watercolour paper, £3.50. Pretty good deal. Okay, so let's try out our jelly roll now. I generally don't get on well with rollerball pens, but when I do use them, I tend to find the jelly rolls work for me. I don't know whether it's a left-handed thing. I know other left-handed people that have had the same problem. But the main thing is to make sure that they are actually rolling before you get started. And I find the best way to do that is to keep a coloured post-it note to hand. I've got post-it notes everywhere, but I've a post-it note monster. So obviously being able to do that on coloured paper lets you see really quickly whether it's at the ink's actually on its way. So let's see what happens here. Oh no. That has cut a line through my paint. It is not leaving the ink behind. So yeah, these pens do not work well on this, and whoever told you otherwise is a liar. So you can see the ink's flowing. There is not an issue there. My ink is ready to go. And the minute I'm not putting any pressure on that at all, and it's just cutting a line through. So, and if I go back to my post-it note, you can see the ink's fine. So that's basically a load of rubbish. Don't know whether I thought that was going to be okay. I'm going to try it on different paints here. I suspect the paper has a lot to do with this, because the paper is quite textured. I can't even go back. Oh no. No. It's not happy. Oh, there we go. No, too fiddly. Thumbs down, rollerball, worth a shout. Interested to find out? Featured artist has used this extensively. Patterns, all this kind of stuff. Trying to replicate said patterns, nothing. Which leads me to think that this may not have been done on this kind of paper. I mean, this is bone dry. Like, there's absolutely nothing to do with the fact that this like the paint's damp or anything. It is not. That was interesting, disappointing, but interesting. So that is basically our scroller box for this month. I have learned about these pastel paints. I like them. I can't quite place them in the grand scheme of gouache, pigment paints and watercolour, because they seem to be an amalgamation of all of these. Water brush is great, they're good quality, and paper's surprisingly good for the price point. Just not my cup of tea with the actual texture of the paper. We've also learned with this paint that we do have lifting abilities. Oh, I was going to test that out now that it's bone dry. And we can also layer them up with a bit of transparency, but we can also make that opaque if we want. And we can mix paint on the paper to create new colours. I don't know what more you want from a little set of paints like that you can take away with you. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Yeah, I just want to have another go at lifting now that this is absolutely bone dry. So I'm going to try with this pink just because I've got a couple of layers down there. So I've got a wet brush here, and again that is lifting off. Like you could, like, there's the colour that I've just lifted off. So yeah, this I suppose it may have just been like an offhand comment. Now you're not going to lift all of that away. Number one, because it's bone dry, and secondly, because of the texture of the paper. That has a lot to do with it, but you can see you do have lifting properties there. And I dare say that if you persevered a wee bit, you could take away a bit more than that. But yeah, so it'll lift a little bit, but it's not going to completely disturb what you've done underneath. So the throwaway comment, and I think that's just what it is. I'm not like, you know, it's not really a big deal. They can also be layered for a brighter finish without dissolving any previously dried layers. So I think it's just a case of being careful, but you can lift if you want to. So you've actually got versatility there and the best of both worlds. I would absolutely love to know what you good people think of this box. I like getting boxes like this because sometimes I think the less supplies you have, the more simple it makes your life. Some people find it restrictive. I tend to find the opposite. A bit disappointed, a bit bummed about the jelly roll not really working on top of the paint here. If anybody else has experienced this, would love to hear about it. I'm sure some of you will have opened your Scrawler boxes by now. Other than that, yeah, I think the theme's great, and say the paper is a nice surprise, and we have a lovely prompt as well for the Scrawler challenge, so you can keep your eyes peeled for that in the next week or so. We will tackle that and we will make something pretty with these pastel paints. So that is it for today, guys. I want to thank you very much for coming and hanging out with me. As always, I really appreciate it. I hope you've had a good time, and I shall see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. So have a great day, everyone, and bye bye for now.